Recorded Books presents The Magus Conspiracy, Assassin's Creed, The Engine of History, by Kate Heartfield, narrated by Moira Quirk. Dedication. For Brent. Prologue. Simeon Price tried to shut out the sound of whispered prayer and the groaning of the ship. He flopped one arm over his ear, but it was no good. He was irritatingly awake. "Seasick again, Halford?" he mumbled. The praying stopped. "Not tonight. Can't sleep is all." Simeon turned over with some difficulty in his rocking hammock. Private Sawyer Halford was a dark bulk against a line of similar dark bulks, lit up by a single lantern against the wall. The troop deck was stuffy this deep into the night, a stew of sweat and tobacco, iron and wood. Overhead somewhere, a rat scuttled. "Thinking about what's waiting for us when we go ashore?" Simeon kept his voice low. He'd recently been given the appointment of Lance Corporal, which was hardly even a rank, but it did mean that he had responsibility over Halford and a few other privates of the 74th Highland Regiment of Foot. Anyway, Simeon liked Halford. But going ashore was going to happen, and soon. They had sailed past Cape Town, the captain charting a course that hugged the southern coast of Africa to save time, speeding by steam and sail toward war. "I suppose so," Halford said. "It was one thing being sent to Ireland. I knew what to expect, or thought I did." There was a pause, during which they both thought about what they'd seen in Ireland. The houses burned, the children so thin. "But I'd never even heard of the Cosa before we sailed. I doubt they've heard of you either, mate." Halford might have chuckled, or might have sighed. It was hard to tell which in the dark. "At least when my father went off to fight Napoleon, he'd seen a picture of the bastard." He paused, then said even more quietly, "I've never killed anyone before." Neither had Simeon, though he'd come close a couple of times in his father's public house back in Ealing. There had been one night in Tipperary when he had expected to be asked to kill women and old men. In the end, they had left the storehouse he was guarding without violence, gone back to their hungry beds, and Simeon had got very drunk. He had no words of wisdom for Halford tonight. "I'm sorry I interrupted your prayer," Simeon said quietly. "Prayer?" Halford chuckled. "Oh no, Price. I wasn't praying. I always recite Shakespeare when I can't sleep." "Which bit of Shakespeare?" "It varies. Tonight it's the Sceptred Isle speech from Richard II. Simeon was surprised. "Oh, right. England, bound in with the triumphant sea, whose rocky shore beats back the envious siege of watery Neptune. I can't remember the next part. Is now bound in with shame, with inky blots and rotten parchment bonds. That England, that was wont to conquer others, hath made a shameful conquest of itself." Halford paused. "Maybe not the best choice for tonight, but it was the sea that made me think of it." Simeon opened his mouth to say he thought it was an excellent choice, when the ship lurched to a terrible stop, throwing him half out of his hammock. There were shouts from above. Simeon disentangled his arm and stumbled to his feet. The hideous noise stretched on. A sickening crunch, the iron hull tearing open, the floor tilted from bow to stern. Simeon lurched through the jungle of hammocks and ropes past the bewildered men just waking up, out to the door and the stairs up to the deck in his shirt and trousers. It was a warm night, with cold stars above, the dark water below. The ship was now unnaturally still and lying at an odd angle. HMS Birkenhead was a Frankenstein's monster of iron and wood, converted from a frigate to a troop ship, steam coming from its great black funnel
Sample complete. Ready to continue?